Hey, Brittany, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hey, Brittany.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
And we're super excited to have you here with us because you have an awesome debt-free story that's going to motivate everybody that's tuned in. And so we can't wait to hear all the details about it. But before we do that, can you just take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody and let them know what you're all about?
Yeah, thank you. So Brittany from Pennies into Pearls, and so I do have a website and YouTube channel, and that's where I talk all about living your dream life on less. And most recently, we celebrated in our family that we just paid off all of our debt, and so that is like our number one exciting thing that has happened to us recently. And so we're the same, and we just like to help motivate and help others live a debt-free life.
Love that. Love that. So excited to hear that you guys have just celebrated becoming debt-free. So tell our audience a little bit about the debt. How much was it and what type of debt was it?
Yes. So our total debt was around like $23,000. But then if you include all the interest that we had to pay, it was closer to like $25,000. And most of that is from our student loans. We both got our bachelor's degrees, and so we had 4 to 5 years of college, and we got that back in where we graduated in 2008, 2009. And so that's when we got most of our student loan debt. And then more recently, we financed a car probably 3 years ago, but we financed about $8,000 of that. And so together, that's where we got our $23,000.
And how long did it take you guys to pay it off?
So we were so slow at this to begin. So before we even sat down and decided, okay, let's just get rid of this, and we were just paying the minimum monthly payments on everything. It had probably been about, so it'd probably been about 5-6 years before we decided, okay, let's do this. But then after, we did it in 12 months, almost to the day. 12 months, we were able to finish paying it off, and we got rid of it all.
So in the 12 months, how much out of that $25,000 was paid during the 12 months?
It was about $18,000 in the.
It's amazing. The key is, and we say this time and time again, the fact is that you're debt free. It may take some people 5 years, it may take some 10, but the goal is to become debt free. And you guys were definitely working hard at doing this, and you were able to pay off majority of it in 12 months. That is remarkable.
Incredible.
My gosh. Wow.
We were really, really excited and really motivated and dedicated to doing it because we were just done having that hangover head, just the bondage that it makes you feel like you just feel so restricted, and we were just done with that. So we were motivated.
But what caused the motivation to ramp up? Like you said, there was a long period there where you were just doing what everybody else is doing, just paying whatever they say to pay, the minimum. But something clicked. You said it was like you were done doing the minimums and something had to change. But what caused that? What made you shift from just going through the motions of paying when the bill comes, you pay what they tell you, to saying, you know what? No, we got to get out of this debt, and we got to get out of it now. What made the change?
Yeah, I would say it was when we were finally decided to seriously look at buying our first home. I think that's when it really clicked for us and lit that fire to get us going as fast as we could. And we originally had started looking for a home a while ago, and we talked to a lender and realized that we really couldn't afford that much. So then we're like, okay, we'll come back and visit this again at a later time. So then that's why I said when we seriously were looking at, we're like, okay, how much can we afford to put towards a mortgage each month? And then we realized that most of our money, a big chunk of our money, was tied up in loan payments, just the minimum payments. And then we're like, okay, let's look at our loans. And I'm like, okay, we've been paying for a while. We must have paid off a huge chunk. But no, like barely anything. Most of it's going to interest and barely was going to principal. And that was so discouraging. I'm like, okay, they can't take any more of my money. This is my money. I don't want to give it to them. So that was really what led us, is when we were trying to, we still haven't bought our first house. We're working on it right now. But now that we're debt free. And so that's what started it. And then looking at all the money that I was just throwing away, like, you can say that your student loans, like you got something in return, but all that interest you're paying, you don't get anything for that interest. It's just money out of your pocket. And so that I was just like, no more.
Very, very good point. I love that. I love that. So talk about the mindset that you guys had to put yourself in order to say, you know what, let's do this. Let's knock out this debt.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just that, well, it's something that my husband and I had to get on board with. And I think the mindset is just like no excuses, like a no excuses mindset, that we're like, okay, this is what we want. We sat down, we have our goals, we have our family goals. This is where we want to see ourselves in 5 years. And we're not going to let anything get in the way. And the first thing that we need to get out of the way is the debt. So it was just a no excuses and very focused mindset.
Now, was it a struggle? We're dealing with a husband and a wife, so sometimes one is on board quicker than the other. Talk about that. Did you both get fired up at the same time? And how did you all come to the place where you were both charging at this debt together?
Yeah, I love that question, because that's such a hard thing for so many couples, don't you guys think? Like, to get both on board, which is vital in a marriage, any relationship, to be on the same page. And so I would say for us, it was probably easier than other stories that I've heard. But I would say that I was the first one to kind of bring up the topic and kind of ease it into the mind of my husband. The other thing that I was just like, the interest rates. I just naively was thinking, oh, it's a student loan, I have a really good interest rate. But then when I was looking at it, I'm like, holy moly, okay, we just cannot deal with this. So what worked for my husband and I is I actually showed him the numbers, like, okay, we've been paying, but look at how much money we're just throwing away, and look at what we're paying each month. And then I showed him, the good news is, when we get rid of this, look at what we could have, focusing on the positive and saying, look at what doors this would open for us. And so bringing it to him that way, maybe that helped a little bit. But for us, when it comes to finances, we've always been pretty much on the same page, so that helps. But I think delivering it to him that way, rather than just being like, okay, we're going to stop spending money and it's going to be hard, just focusing on the negative, delivering it with the goal in mind, I think maybe that helped us a little bit.
So tell us, what were some of the strategies that you guys put in place in order to knock out $18,000 in 12 months?
Yeah, so the first thing we did was really minimize our budget. So just taking out any non-essentials, and then looking at the things that we have to pay, the ones that everyone talks about, like you get rid of cable and those things, but then also our cell phone bill. I remember I was so proud of ourselves for negotiating down a smaller cell phone bill. And I think we might have made it harder on ourselves than it needed to be. We're with one cell phone company, so we're like, okay, we're going to go to another one, and we're going to get their prices and then bring it back over to where we are now, and show them what better deal we can get. And so we did that, and we went back to where we are now, and we're like, this is the deal they can give us. And then they beat that price by $20. So we negotiated down our bill, and we negotiated down our monthly bill by $40 a month, and then we got better service and more data with our cell phone carrier. So anyways, things like that we were really excited about. So, and I think a lot of people think oh, well, big deal, $40 a month, and I have thousands of dollars in debt. but it really, I mean, it makes a big difference. It really does. And then, so we did that. And then probably the most significant thing would be, we're blessed with my husband's job that he is pretty much able to get all the overtime that he wants. And so him being able to do overtime, and what we did is we sat down and we made a plan and budgeted out how much money we wanted to put towards debt each month. And then we looked at what our expenses are, what our income was, and then figured out how much of a difference we had to make up with the overtime. So then we made that, and then we figured out how many hours per month he'd have to work. And so he did that, which he worked hard for that. But then also, it's hard on the mom side too, because when husband's gone a lot more and then you're home with the kids, because we have 3 kids, 5 and under. And so it's busy and tiring. You guys know too. And it's just, it was a really hard work. And I do feel like we did that hustle. And, but I mean, it's so worth it. So worth it. So those are the biggest things. Oh, and then, going back to our budget, I feel like meal planning was huge for our budget. And I didn't realize at the time, mainly I started meal planning for the time. I felt really overwhelmed. Like, I hated having the 5 o'clock come up and then everyone's nagging me what's for dinner. And that's the number one reason I started it. But then, a nice surprise is that we were cutting hundreds of dollars of our spending just by meal planning. And we did not even realize, sometimes when we look back, I'm like, can you believe we would go out to eat that much and we'd spend that much money on eating out? That's crazy. And so that was a huge surprise, and how much just simply meal planning, how much money that helped us save every single month. And then you look at that over a year, and I mean, that's some big numbers that you're saving, which you just put towards your debt. And that's what we did. Any money we saved, we put towards debt. All the overtime money we got, put that towards the debt, and every little thing. Oh, and then we also did no spend months, where we'd cancel out all of our non-essential spending, and then that extra money that we saved from that went towards our debt. So
yeah. I love that. So tell us, what type of did you have a special system or technique? Did you all throw money towards the debt just once a month, or anytime you got extra money you want to hurry up and get out of your hands and you paid it towards principal? How did you all go about applying the extra towards your balances?
Well, my husband gets paid every 2 weeks. So that's kind of when we sit down and revisit the budget, is every 2 weeks. And so that's how it worked, is we kind of knew what extra money we would have coming up in the next paycheck. But that's what we do. So the first thing I go through is we go through all of our bills and our expenses. We pay all of those. And then I kind of had a little formula in an Excel spreadsheet, and it would show us, okay, this is how much money you're going to have left over. I'd leave a small little $50 buffer just in case there was random things that I wasn't on top of. And then it would show me, okay, you have this much money left over after all your bills. And then so every 2 weeks we just throw that towards. We started with our biggest debts, and so we threw it towards the biggest debts, and then we did the snowball, and then we just rolled that down until they were gone.
Love that.
I want to circle back to something that you said earlier, and Ty and I are known throughout the internet for this phrase that we keep saying, hustle season, right? Where you have to go through a period where you guys are grinding and you're hustling your way out of debt. And a lot of people gravitate towards it, and they don't have a problem saying, it's hustle season. That's right, it's hustle season. But there's this other side to it, right? And you just mentioned it. When one of you is hustling, the other has to kind of hold the fort down. He's doing overtime at work, and you're doing overtime at home.
Yeah.
How important was it for you guys to kind of keep the lines of communication open during this process? Because for a lot of people, that can cause a lot of strain, and it can cause some turmoil. But it seemed that you all were able to navigate through all that and find your way to the finish line.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it when you said keep the communication open, because he would not have a hard time. If he was feeling drained one month, maybe we would only do 1 overtime shift instead of 2. And I thought that was important. And you kind of, as we would go through, like he would tell me that, or I would tell him, like he'd come home one day and I'd say, okay, I just need 15 minutes by myself to recollect or something. And I mean, that is exactly it. And then also, so you have to have that communication line open, but you have to be able to receive what the other person is saying to you. And then it's never been like a equal give and take, even though I do feel like it's equal. So it's not like, okay, you went to work all day. As soon as he comes home, I'm like, okay, here's the kids. Like, we never did that. Or he never came home and was like, okay, I've been working all day. I'm just going to sit down on the couch for the rest of the night. And so it was never like that. And probably because of our communication, there was an understanding, and it was like, okay, so I've been working all day at home and he's been at work all day. So when we come home now, we share responsibilities. And if he needed that extra time, like if he needed time to unwind at home, then I let him do it. And so it kind of worked for us where, I mean, I'm sure there were times where both of us were extremely exhausted at the end of the day at the same time, but it kind of worked out where like one day he might be super tired, so he needed the extra time to recoup, or then the next day it was me. And so it's kind of give and take, but it was never like, okay, you did this, so I get this. It wasn't ever like that for us.
The Sunday Night Sit Down is being brought to you by our friends at Policy Genius. That's your go-to stop to meet all of your insurance needs, because they have a totally free tool on their website where all you have to do is put in your information and you will get instant quotes from multiple reputable insurance providers so that you can make the best decision possible when it comes time to purchase insurance. To find out more details, all you have to do is go to hisandhermoney.com/policygenius.
What was the response like from your family and your friends during the journey and once you guys became debt free?
Well, during the journey, because of my blog and YouTube, we've always been an open book. So everybody knew, all my friends, everybody at church, all of our family, everybody knew 100% what was going on and knew exactly the numbers of how much more we had left. And I think that was a good thing for us because people were super understanding. And I think they knew, like, everyone still invited us to go do things. But if we're like, oh, we already spent all our fun money this month, we can't go out to dinner for the rest of the month, like, people totally understood. Our family knew. And I think maybe people are more willing. Like, we did a lot of times with, like, my sister-in-law, we would swap babysitting so we didn't have to pay a babysitter. So one weekend, I'd watch her kids while her and her husband went out, and then the next weekend they would do the same for us, and so that cut costs. And so I think people were really understanding of us, and then of course so supportive because that's such a worthwhile goal. And then also I know a lot of our family and friends have since started on their debt-free journey, just seeing how happy it's made us and how freeing, like, that's the only word I can think of, and that's what I always say is, like, how free we feel now. So I think them seeing it, so they were supportive and happy for us, and I think it's helped motivate others too because they see how great it can be.
They see real people,
yeah,
real people paying off debt, and so they know if you can do it, then they can do it as well.
So in the effort of keeping it real, we've talked about a lot of the sunshiny days and you're debt free now and you can't believe how awesome it feels. But were there some obstacles during the journey that popped up? And if so, how did you guys fight through them and not give up?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so when we first graduated college, even though we weren't looking to pay off our debt at that time, so I graduated in 2008, and then my husband graduated in construction management in 2009, which was like the bottom of the housing crash. So there weren't a ton of jobs available in the construction management field. So that kind of set us off to a rocky start, him finding a job. I was blessed to find a job right away, but then we moved back to San Diego and, back and forth. But I mean, I always say, like, even though we've had like such a long journey and that's the way, like, that's just the beginning of it, like, I really wouldn't change it because I mean, he went to college, and that's where we met, so that's good. I'm glad that he didn't go to another college for something else. And then, so then he went to school to become a diesel mechanic. And so it was like a certificate training type thing. And since then, he's changed his career again, but I still wouldn't change it because all of that education that he's received on like how to fix automotives, cars and trucks and stuff has saved us thousands of dollars. But while he was working as a heavy-duty diesel mechanic for the federal government, for the Navy, actually, as a civilian, he got furloughed. So that was a 20% pay cut. And I had just quit my job to stay home with our daughter, who was like one year old, I think, at the time. So then that was the next thing. And that at that time we're like, okay, even though we still had this debt that we weren't thinking about yet, at the time we're like, okay, this is when we wanted to start looking to buy a house. But then he got his 20% pay cut, and we had saved a nice chunk of money to put towards a down payment on a house, which, again, was a blessing, even though that's not what we wanted to do with it, but we ended up having to live off of our savings. So it was a blessing that it was there, but of course it's frustrating. It's like, no, we don't want to like have to live off of it. We want to be able to use it for a house. So then that was the second big hurdle that we had to do. And I think it's really hard to like, and we don't wear rose-colored glasses, but we do try our best to look for the good. And I do think through any trial, like there's something to be learned. And if you try to look for what can I learn from this, it's going to help you in the future if that comes up again. And then it's going to also help you try to make it through where you are in the moment. So when he had his 20% pay cut, we were supplementing his income, and we drained our savings at that time. And then like about a year ago, October, and some change, when we were like, okay, we're going to get rid of this debt. We don't want one penny of debt. So we started on this journey, and he's working his overtime, and we were doing really good. We were just knocking that debt out. And then, so this happened like last February. It began. My husband got an infection in his ankle, which was so random. He's a police officer, and so he I don't know. Long story short, it was from work. And so he got this infection in his foot, and he had to have surgery, and he was out of work, even though luckily because of his job, and since it was job related, they paid for his time, his medical leave, and then he had to recover. So he was able to have like a desk job, but so we were able to cover our expenses. But during this time when he was in pain, and then surgery, and then recovery, it was so let's see, it happened in February, March, April, May. I don't think we got back on track for like 3 or 4 months. So during that time, he didn't work any overtime, obviously, and so we weren't paying any extra towards our debt for that like 3-4 month window. And so that was so hard, because it felt like every time we were like climbing back up the ladder and we're about ready to, make some big changes, we'd get knocked back down again. And so having him have that injury, and then the recovery time on top of it, because you don't think about the recovery time. But then that's the same thing that we did. We're like, okay, well, we're again focusing on the good. Like, okay, well, at least we can take care of our expenses, and we're not going to be kicked out of our house. Like, at least we have that. And then we still look towards the future. We're like, okay, so let's reevaluate a little bit. Once he was able to work the overtime, we decided that he was going to work a little more overtime than he was before to kind of make up for the lost time. And so, but then finally after that, so like this last summer, then we were able to get back on the debt payoff. And then our goal, I think, was November 4th, 2016 to have it done. And we made our very last payment on October 20th, the day before my birthday. So I remembered it very well.
And tell us about that moment. Talk about the moment when you guys paid your very last payment on your debt. I believe that you actually have a video.
Yes, yes, it was.
Yeah, I watched the video. It was amazing. And I will make sure that we will include it in the show notes if you guys definitely want to check out that video. But walk us through that moment.
Oh, it was so fun. And I'm kind of like a nerd when it comes to that stuff and like overexcited about things. But I mean, I felt like it was a big deal and a big accomplishment. We worked hard. We persevered through all these stumbling blocks. And I'm like, we're going to make a big deal about this. And I like, oh, I wanted to get poppers, like just the ones that you pull the string and it pops. But I couldn't find them anywhere. They weren't at the dollar stores. They weren't at the party stores. Everyone was sold out. And it wasn't even, it was October. Yeah, October. So anyways, so then we decided to go with silly string. And so we wanted to involve the kids because, everyone in the family, like dad's not home. So things are different. And so since they're so little, we didn't really go that in depth with, the things, but we told them and they know we're debt free, but I'm not 100% sure they know what that means. But so when we actually did it, I'm like, okay, you're coming over to the computer with me and you're going to hold my hand and we're going to do it together. 'Cause it's all like, it's teamwork. It's total teamwork. It was a huge, both of us had to work hard for this. So that's what we did is, I got it all down to the very, very last payment. And then we sat there and we did it together and it felt so good. And then, we had the kids and we went outside and shot silly string everywhere and had a fun time. And we kept saying debt free. And so the kids are excited about it. But I would say maybe it didn't quite sink in until the next paycheck came when we didn't have to make any debt payments. That was when it was like, I'm like, Tommy, that's my husband's name. I'm like, come look at how much money we have left over. It was really, again, freeing. It's just like, okay, now we got to make a plan what to do with this money that we don't have to put towards debt. And that is when it really sunk in, was the next paycheck when we didn't have to make any debt payments. That was really awesome.
I love that. Now, if you had to pick one tool that you believe helped you and your husband through this debt-free journey and you were able to become debt-free, what would that one tool be?
I would say when we switched over to a cash budget, I don't know if I mentioned that, but we started doing a cash budget maybe like 2 years ago. That was a big game changer for us because we've always had, not always, we learned, but when we started our budget, but then we would keep falling off and we'd going over budget. And, but when we started using cash, we were able to stick to the budget, which allowed us to have that extra money to go towards the debt. So when we switched over to cash, that was huge. And then, eliminating all the extras with like meal planning, that kind of stuff. But cash for sure.
Well, it's been a couple months now. You've been living the debt-free life now just a little bit. So for everybody listening, compare life now being debt-free to back when you were deep in debt and trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah. Oh man. The first word that comes to mind is stress-free. We still have, it's not like the perfect life now all of a sudden that we're debt-free, but, I don't dread going to pay bills and I don't dread pulling out our budget every 2 weeks. And our conversations about our budget are a lot more low key. They're not quite as intense and we don't have to make such hard decisions anymore, mainly because we have goals. So now it's like, okay, the debt's gone. We're still living pretty much the same way we were because now we're just taking all that money that we had towards debt to go towards a house. But so before it was kind of like, okay, yeah, let's just get rid of this debt. And so we're paying all this extra money towards the debt. But now what we get to do is put that money towards a house. And what better goal? That's a lot more exciting than paying off debt to somebody I don't even know. Now we can work towards something tangible that we can actually achieve. So it's so much like stress-free and just, we get to choose where a lot of our money goes now, where before we didn't have a choice. We couldn't just be like, oh, we're done paying you. Like, we'll just write that we're done. But now we get to choose. And so that's very freeing and stress-free for sure.
So do you have any book recommendations? We like to have our guests mention any books that you want to share with our audience, maybe some books that may have helped you during this journey.
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, I would say that Money Making Mom from Crystal Payne, that was one of them. And just to help get a little supplemental income. So like every once in a while, because through the whole debt-free journey too, I would say that it's important we did like mini milestones and would do mini celebrations for those to kind of give I don't know, it just makes it easier to swallow when you do little bites at a time. So through that book, I learned different little things and kind of just gave me ideas on my own of ways I could maybe get an extra $50 for a month. And then so the family, we would go out on a family dinner. So for our big celebration. So that was one. And then The Recovering Spender, that was another one that I really liked. To kind of, and then in that book, what I really liked too was I feel like she talks a lot about the open communication that you need to have between a husband and wife to get rid of your debt and to help a recovering spender. Because usually that's how it works, is not all the time, but like one person in the relationship's the spender and one person's the saver. And that's kind of how it works in our relationship. And so it's a really, really good book to help you see where the other person's coming from, which in the long run, I mean, that's going to help big time. So those are my two favorite for sure.
So reflecting back over your debt-free journey, what do you think was the biggest life lesson that you took away from it all?
I would say life lesson. Well, especially when it comes to our finances, I think it's completely changed our perspective on spending money. We focus a lot more now on what we value. So like before I'd be like, why is that family spending money on blah, 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 blah? And because to me, it seems pointless, but maybe to them, that is what their family values. Like maybe it's really important for them to go out to eat once a week. But so for us, when I say where we're spending money on things that we value, so it's kind of a give and take. So if we decide one month, okay, we need, because I do think that sometimes you need to do things like this, like we need a family fun day, so we're going to go to the movies, but we're going to have to give up that money from somewhere else, because again, it's our cash budget, so it has to come from somewhere else. We don't just have extra money. So focusing our spending on what we value and then reevaluating all the time, like every budget, we're reevaluating where we want to spend that money, where we value the most at that time. So like, and then, a good example would be like this last Christmas, we've been talking about how much overtime my husband's been working, and we had plans for him to work Thanksgiving and to work Christmas Eve and to work New Year's Eve. But then during this time, we're like, okay, and we were putting all that money towards savings, and we had our savings goal for the end of the year. But then we changed our minds, and we said we would rather have him home. That's what we're valuing right now. And in the past, when we were doing our hustle, we gave up holidays sometimes, and that's just what we had to do. And I think that is totally fine. And sometimes you have to, but since we were at a place in our lives now that our debt was gone, we were able to make that choice. And so that's at that time what we were valuing more, is him being able to stay home. So we weren't quite to our savings goal at the end of the year, but we were okay with it because that's where we decided to focus our value and focus our spending or savings that month. So
love that. So talk to that person right now who may feel a little discouraged after hearing your story. They're like, okay, I wonder if I can do this. Speak to that person and encourage them right now.
I would say, keep going and take it a bite at a time. Like break it down and do those small goals. And when you get to that small goal, do a celebration. And it doesn't have to be anything big. Like go get a 50-cent ice cream cone from McDonald's, or maybe it's $1. But you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be a big thing, but reward yourself and celebrate. Like celebrate your small milestones, because I think that is going to keep you going, and that's just what you have to do. And start now. Like, I think that's big. Like, start today. Don't wait till tomorrow, because there's always going to be another Monday that you're going to start, you know, like with diets and things like that. It always starts on Monday. Like, start right now and then keep going, and just, you know, keep your head up. It's going to be okay, and keep the goal in mind. For us, we always we would like print out pictures. So for us, our goal was always to buy our first home. So having a like physical image in our bathroom on our mirror, that is what helps us keeping the big goal in mind, taking it a step at a time, and keep going and start now.
Right, that's right.
Very good.
So Brittany, tell everybody about your website and YouTube channel and everything you got going on and how they can connect with you.
Thank you. Yeah. So I have my website, penniesintopearls.com, and that's where I talk all about living your dream life on less. And so I talk about the very beginning steps to like having a family budget. I do a lot of meal planning and grocery hauls. I have a brand new beginner's meal planning toolkit. And so I have tools for you to plan out monthly, which is what our family does, but then also weekly. And then I also on there, it breaks it down by cost for like each item. And then it has totals. So you know when you're actually at the grocery store what to expect to pay. So that way, if it comes out $10 higher, you know that maybe there's something wrong. So that's there. And then, yes, my YouTube channel, Pennies into Pearls, same topics and just all video. And then Instagram, Pennies into Pearls as well.
Love your channel. Awesome.
Well, it's been amazing, Brittany. Your story is incredible. We know that everybody got super inspired and is ready to continue on or start their journeys to debt freedom. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to share with our audience today.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. It was really fun. Thank you.